Hi, my name is Bernard Evans. I'm here today to share with you a little bit about myself, a little profile, not necessarily everything. The name of the program is called The Story of Our Lives. I will begin talking about my early childhood. I was born November 18th, 1942. My parents my parents were Alma Bell and Andrew Evans. They both are originally from Alexandria, Virginia. I was actually born at Alexandria Hospital, 800 Duke Street. The interesting thing is that, back in 1942, everything was segregated. Most folks from Alexandria, either they went to Washington, D.C., Freeman Hospital to be born. Between of the marriage, of course, it was 14 of us between two marriages. Of course, my mom passed on early at an early age. It was seven between both marriages there, so it's a total of 14 of us, and of course I'm the oldest of 14. Some of my memorable experiences, of course, in the family, such a large family, I can certainly remember my uncles and aunts on both sides of my family coming together for picnics and coming out to each other's house on Saturdays and bringing the family out. We would sit out in the yard and just chit chat. So it was amazing how both sides of the family got along really great together. On Sundays, of course, another memorable experience would be, I can remember us going to church every Sunday, and we always would stop by my great-grandmother's house. Of course, both of my grandmothers, of course, had passed on prior to me being born. But I did have a great-grandmother. Her name, of course, was Murray Bell, but we affectionately called her Bunch. And we would stop by every Sunday after church, and we would go in, we would have breakfast, and she'd be sitting at the kitchen table, motioning us in, coming in, she'd be fixing the bread. So those are really great memorable experiences as I look back on it. Education-wise, I started off at St. Joseph Elementary School. That is an all-black school. That's in Alexandria, Virginia. Of course, it's 700 North Columbus Street. Matter of fact, the interesting part about it, the school actually was founded by blacks. Matter of fact, my family played a integral part in getting the school, and I guess as well as the church built there. But St. Joseph was a four-room school. We had 4 nuns. Each nun taught 2 classes. So the total was 8 grades. We were responsible for keeping the school clean, keeping it updated where where we could actually go to school for its fire safety, and our parents also took an active part in terms of keeping the school clean too. Where there was actually a list where they would come on the weekends, weekdays, and clean the hallways. We were responsible for cleaning up under our desks, etc. So that was really a unique experience. I left St. Joseph around, I think, the 7th grade, and I went to Charles Houston Public School for just about a year. Of course, the system was different in the public schools. Of course, they had janitorial service, so we were not required to help to keep the school clean. But of course, in the private school arena, of course, we were responsible for doing that. After that, of course, high school-wise, I went to Parker Gray High School here in Alexandria, Virginia. Parker Gray, again, this is all during the time of segregation there, so there was only one high school, and that was Parker Gray High School. I went there for about, I think about a year and a half or two. That's when my mother, of course, passed, and then we relocated to Arlington, Virginia. And I went to a school by the name Hoffman Boston High School. Again, all black high school, because again, we were still in segregation there. So it was not where we had integration. It was total segregation during that time. I dropped out of high school, I think around the 11th grade. Got disenchanted. Probably was more challenging the teachers opposed to the teachers challenging me. Oh, that's not a knock on the teachers, but that was just my perception of the teachers. At that time, I felt like they really were not being responsible enough. Of course, now I look back on that, that certainly was a negative they were. That was just me feeling like, I guess, that I needed more or they should do more. And of course, that was also based on, had to also remember, segregation totally. You know, we certainly got the secondhand books that was passed down to us, you know, from the white schools. And Arlington was like Washington Lee and Wakefield. And Alexandria, of course, it was George Washington High School. So I dropped out, and I end up getting my high school diploma through night school. So I talked to my counselor and said, well, maybe you just need to go to night school. So I went on to night school. However, I didn't go to night school from there. Kind of just moved around, did some little odd jobs, etc. Then I went back in night school. So I only had a year or less. And I got my high school diploma from T.C. Williams High School. And the interesting thing about that, T.C. Williams, of course, and this dude didn't know it was one of the biggest segregationists on the East Coast. And of course, that was my superintendent in Alexandria before we relocated to Arlington. But I did get it there, and from there, of course, I went on up to the Washington Saturday College at Howard University. Spent about 3 years there in the School of Theology. Left there, and of course, that is pretty much the basis of my, I guess you call it formal education. My education primarily has been interacting and dealing with people and listening to the issues that were relevant at that time. And I was very fortunate, of course, you know, be able to done pretty well, you know, considering I do not have a formal degree. So my degree, of course, I would say it really came out of the community. Now, I'll share a little bit about my values. This is where I really began to see the world as it is, and of course, see Alexandria, well, Northern Virginia as it is. There were two people that really stood out for me. One, a female and a male, Katrina Rawls and Chester Palmer. Katrina, brilliant person. She's still living. She lives down in Stafford, Virginia. She was the first black woman that ever was that was then nominated for the Alexandria School Board. The school board now, of course, is elected, but she was the first black woman to ever serve on the Alexandria School Board. She was one of the first, of course, that was part of CORE when we began the movement for civil rights. housing, education, marching. Katrina was the pioneer there. She certainly was one that spoke to the issues and began to enlighten me. Oh, gee, this is really what's going on. But again, a great person, and matter of fact, in my humble opinion, she could easily have been mayor of the city. She went on, of course, to be work at Housing Urban Development, in housing development, but her background, of course, was social work. Chester Palmer, of course, who's passed on, we actually grew up together, basically the same age. Again, another sharp person. Chester, matter of fact, skipped 2 grades when we were in high school. So when he had finished high school, and I was in the 10th grade. He had already graduated. He went to military school, which is all black school. It was called St. Emma Military Academy down in a place called Powelltown, Virginia. He, of course, then went on to went to a college called St. Norbert and came back, but always was interested in we couldn't vote. We could not go downtown and sit down and have a lunch. Just really upset about those issues, and he began to write articles to the Alexandria Gazette and wrote a couple articles, of course, to the Afro-American newspaper, which still exists today. But the emphasis was then really on voting rights. Our right to vote, the poll tax, that you had to pay a $2 poll tax here in Alexandria then, and if you went down and you were not able to write your name, of course, they would not let you register to vote. Chester was instrumental, of course, not only writing the articles, but actually having a demonstration right on Queen and Fayette Street in the heart of the city. Back then, of course, the mayor was there, Chuck Beatley, city council folks, community folks, because no one had ever seen anything like that. And this was on a Saturday night, and we had a program, a demonstration there, talking about the fact is that the things that we were not able to do because of the color of our skin, and of course there were no programs that was available in terms of laws, etc. I guess for my family, in terms of my sharing my values, the first person that jumps out, of course, is my uncle's name is William Evans, affectionately known as Uncle Buddy. But of course, in 1939, along with 6 other men, they decided that they were going in and apply for their library card. The attorney, of course, that was assisting them was Attorney Samuel Tucker. So, of course, they went in to apply for the library card. They were denied, and of course, they were locked up. They actually was taken locked up, and they was taken to city jail. And from that, with Uncle Buddy and that sit-in, which was the first sit-in that is documented in the history of the United States, that it actually had been a sit-in. That was at the Alexandria Main Library. At that time, it was called, I think it was called the Queen City Library. That was the main library. From there, with Uncle Buddy, the city decided, oh, we're gonna build your library. And of course, Attorney Tucker said, no, we don't want you to build us a library. We are tax-paying citizens, it's a public library, we have the right. We want to come to this library. Of course, that didn't happen. Matter of fact, they did build a one-room library, which still exists today. It's right at at Wythe and, what's that, Wythe and North Apple Street. Across from the Charles Houston Center is now called the Black Resource Center. But that was originally our library. And the name of the library was Robinson and Robinson. We had a librarian. I thought we had a librarian, assistant librarian. So this is where we would go to get study or get a library book. However, it's documented too. Mr. Tucker, he never stepped foot in there. He never came to the library because that was not the purpose of the sit-in. The sit-in was for folks to be able to come to the main library, get the library card. Of course, Uncle Buddy, I'm not sure if he ever went to that library, but there was never a lot of talk about that in my family. About that particular, about that occurrence. Well, from the library, of course, then there's my aunt. Her name is Dorothy Turner. She of course is William, Uncle Buddy's sister. She's a little bit younger. She of course came behind, of course, and she was very active in tenant rights. That was a big thing. An advocate for anyone that was discriminated against in housing, job opportunity, etc. We affectionately called her Peaches. But again, she's documented. She's in the history books there. One of the things I'll share with you, the Alexandria Redevelopment Housing Authority, or public housing, that's the only place, of course, that folks could live during that time. They built public housing there. Well, one of the problems, of course, by having public housing, it was set up that manager could come into one's house anytime they got ready, 24/7. So if there was a man and woman living together, they would put them out. That was a violation, of course, of their human rights because that was not a law. But that just gives you an example. That was one of the things, of course, that she became an advocate for, had tenant counts, of course, now. That's history. My brother Wendell Evans, matter of fact, he just passed last June. Wendell was, I think about 14 or 15. And he was going to meet my dad. My dad, of course, was a federal employee, and also he had part-time in the evening. He would clean up buildings. So on this particular Friday, he told my brother, he said, look, catch the bus and bring the keys to me after getting off of work. Anyway, down in the 17th block of King Street, where the King Street station at, it was a parking lot, even a car dealership. So anyway, Wendell was running across the parking lot. The Alexandria police stopped him at 15 and asked him where he was going. He said, I'm going to meet my dad. And of course, they said there had been a robbery in the area, and they locked him up. Now, the law is that when a juvenile was picked up by the police, they would take the juvenile court. Then the parents were informed of, their son or daughter was at the court. They would pick them up, and then there was a trial date for them to come if it warranted, with the juvenile judge, who at that time was Judge Irene Pancoat. Well, they didn't take my brother to a juvenile court. They took him to the Alexandria jail, which, I wish I could think the street now. But the local jail used to be Well, I'm not sure. But anyway, the local jail was right in the heart of Alexandria, right in the heart of Alexandria. He was taken there without due process. They kept him there, did not inform anyone. Judge Pancoat it was after 4 in the day. She had left town for the day, gone for the weekend. So it took about 12 to 14 hours before we could find out where my brother was at. And once my dad went to the Alexandria police department, they told him that he, of course, had been charged with some bogus robbery. I forget, I think it was the detective Grimm and a couple more Alexandria police officers. So they in turn got in touch with Judge Pancoat. Judge Pancoat said she was not coming back to town. So my brother, she finally wrote the order, kept him in jail over almost 36 hours. A teenager, never had that. And so what my dad did, of course, when they took it over to the state Supreme Court, and it was denied because, of course, that again is how the system was at my brother Wendell. But he went through that. My dad, of course, went to took it to the state Supreme Court. There was a little admonishment of Judge Pancoat and as well as police officers. Of course, this day and time now, that have been national news. My brother Andy, who of course lives next to me, in terms of age-wise, he's next to me. Andy ran for sheriff of Alexandria, that same jail that my brother was locked up in. He decided he was going to run for sheriff because of the conditions that existed then. Not only was there very few black deputies, men or women. Conditions was horrible. We toured the jail, food, it was just a horrible place to be. Well, of course, I think it was around 1971, we ran a pretty good race. He lost by 160 votes back then. Of course, we didn't have the money to put on the campaign that the incumbent had. His name was, I think it was Sheriff Fagelson. Had been there for years. But of course, he won 161 votes. Far as we know, it may have been less, we may have won, but of course, we didn't have enough folks to cover all the polls, but we put on a great show. We had a lot of volunteers. So those are some of the things, of course, under the shared values. Now, the journey into my role as a community advocate and the civil rights arena. I guess I'll talk about United Planning Organization first. UPO was a wing of the Office of Economic Opportunity. Office of Economic Opportunity was a funding wing that funded program grants across the United States. President John Kennedy decided that this was needed because, of course, of the conditions back then. Not only, there was no voting rights, no opportunities, communities was, run down. White folks were getting whatever they want, and of course we were not able to get what we want. So he wanted to begin to build communities, build state, local, to get the money flushed in where they could begin to create programs, housing, education, employment opportunities. I don't know if you ever heard of Job Corps. That was just a wing of. Well, So I came to Alexandria to work as the community organizer / project leader to set up the programs there. The idea was to partner with the local city officials to begin to develop programs that would best serve, the total community there. Again, housing, employment opportunities. For example, now they have the Alexandria Office of, I think, Economic Opportunities, where one can go there and get whatever they need, be food stamp, be housing, be job opportunities, whatever. Well, that was the whole idea, to put these programs in place with federal funding, with the idea after so many years, the city would be able to take over and would no longer need federal money because, the programs would be implemented, they're running, and of course, people being involved, etc. I've ran the program, worked with the city the best we could. Matter of fact, we also had the Northern Virginia Voting Education Project kind of set up there too. But the focus was we literally surveyed the community, which was focused on which was primarily called the 16 census tract. Alexandria had, I think, it's 18 census tract. We was focused primarily in the area where the most poverty was at, housing, education, employment, etc. So we decided when we came in, the first thing we need to do, had never done, we need to go door to door and get as much information we could from the folks that we were serving if they would consider, lands to come in, and this would begin to help us to develop our plan, begin to talk to all the Alexandria Employment Office, Alexandria Housing, etc., etc. So that was the emphasis that it would be federal and federal money, 100%. Then it would just dwindle down, 80%, 70%, where the cities would eventually take over. Well, of course, we stayed about almost 2 years. Did a magnificent job, and so I was the community organizer and project leader for that particular program. Another program, of course, that I did, doing this as a civil rights advocate, pulled off a rental strike. I lived in the 700 block of South Fed Street. It was an apartment. Apartment development. It's still there now. Now there are condominiums. It's right at the Beltway. If you're going south toward down Richmond Highway, and you veer off to the right toward the Wilson Bridge, whatever there. Well, over to the right there are condominiums. Those condominiums, apartments. Well, anyway, we moved in there, my family. Of course, we was paying about $75 a month or $8 a month for a 2-bedroom, but the conditions were horrible. We were not getting proper sanitation, not proper trash pickup, heating problems, just to name a couple there. Hallways not being clean. So I decided, why don't we organize ourselves, and we're not going to pay our rent. We're going to do a rent strike. So organize a rent strike. I'll show you Philip Hirschkopf, who is a well-known advocate for these kinds of things. Our attorney that assisted us was, he's passed on, was a guy by the name of Terrence Sidley. During the rent strike, of course, I won't get into much detail on it today, but we did go into court, and we filed a class action suit. Judge O'Flaherty, of course, was the judge on record. Of course, he denied us. The real estate agent or owner of the property was a company by the name of Jacob and Warwick at the time. Well, naturally, you wouldn't go win, but the idea you could go in court and try your case. I was our lawyer. So once I went and tried my case and the judge kicked it out, I said, well, then I want to appeal. So you take it up to civil court. That's when Hirschkopf and the folks started coming in. They assisted us. We did get the conditions were approved. You know, we began to get all the things that we had decided that we wanted. Matter of fact, I took a warrant out for the director of public health because of the broilers there. So I mean, make no mistake, you know, we brought the folks out. We had a legitimate case, of course, and of course we were able to get there. However, once my lease ran out, then it was Jacob and Warwick sold to another company called Jacob and Roberts. So they sent me a letter saying, "Oh, Mr. Evans, you can stay there the next 6 months, no rent, but we're not going to renew your lease." So let me know that, but it was a year lease that we're not going to renew. We're kicking you out. So that gave me 6 months time to find another place, but the conditions were greatly improved. Now they are condominiums. The Boys Club was another program that, of course, got under civil rights. The Boys Club, of course, was segregated, right at Payne and Princess Street. Had tried for years to, my brother and them, you know, attempting to integrate the Boys Club, and it was totally denied. So I decided, okay, and this is also during the time my tenure with UPO as a community organizer, say, wait a minute, let's put a picket line on them. So I told the guys, so they were upset, and I said, no, let's put a picket line. So we put a picket line up, and we marched for, I think it was about 10 days, every evening after school. Now, it's documented. Maureen McLaughlin, who was the, I guess you call the local reporter for the Washington Post, she came over, she interviewed. I didn't really want to talk about it. I gave some information. She came out, took the pictures there, and they marched for 10 days. After 10 days, then the local business leaders, some other folks, oh, Bruno, you got to call them off. You know, it's an eyesore. No, we are not going to stop until you open the doors up. Integration. And of course, it did happen. It was documented. But I will submit to you, you will not find anything in Edelzang, you will not see anything about that. That was wiped out. Matter of fact, I went back in the archives and looked for that in the Washington Post. The history has been wiped out, but it happened. The parents were so upset. They said, we're gonna get you fired. And they attempted to get me fired. Matter of fact, I was fired and got my job back. I was fired because they decided that I was misleading their sons. And when they would come up to get their kids off the line, they refused to go. Those young men refused to go. Said, no, we're not going. So, well, no, it's not me, but just sharing that, to take that negative energy and make it to a positive. So that was one, the civil unrest that we had here in Alexandria. Rap Brown, Stokely Carmichael, you know, the Black Power, you know, back in the PAL sign, you know, Gal Black Power, you know, hey, We are tired. We're sick and tired of being tired. We are not going to stand for it anymore. So Rap Brown, H. Rap Brown, of course, which is his too. He was him and a guy by the name of Ralph Featherstone. They were accused of bombing a place in Baltimore. Well, the Alexandria local jail has always housed federal prisoners. They house federal prisoners, of course, because they could, make a little extra there. So it was decided that H. Rap Brown was coming to the Alexandria City Jail. Woo! Man, Alexandria, they were spinning. Of course, I was out there, came out, kept the crowd quiet, kept things going, talking about the issues there. Anyway, Chester Palmer also was with me on that. Matter of fact, we literally led H. Rap Brown after 12 hours. We led him out to the city of Alexandria, right at the Parkway, took him to D.C. I don't know if you've heard of Marion Barry. He was former mayor. Took him up there. There was a group called the SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinated Committee, which started in the South, was all doing the civil rights, all doing the marches when the dogs were biting. All of that was a part of that. So H. Rap Brown, was a part of the civil unrest, helped to keep the crowds quiet. Then police didn't know what they were doing. They never experienced anything like it. They want to stand up there with their sticks, and that was not the issue there, folks. So that was a scary time, but we got them out. The Untouchables is a group of young men that I work with from ages, I think, from 6 to about 16. The Untouchables became a national group. Matter of fact, President Bill Clinton, when he ran the first time, he actually got involved through his campaign manager. And we actually were invited, we actually was invited to the White House, and we was right there at his quarters, took pictures, which we still have. Oprah Winfrey also was a part that we went nationally with. Oprah Winfrey had us on in terms of the things that we were doing, work with young men. Then from there, there was young women. It's a fantastic. I started the first tutoring program with the Untouchables. And what that simply was, encouraging young men to read. I was paying them $15 a month out of my own money to read. We read one book a month. I would select a book. We would read so many pages each day. Once a week, we would come together, and then we would discuss the chapters that they had read the previous week, get some feedback from them, and then I would have an open book test. Open book. They got $15 a month. Well, they said it couldn't be done. Well, I don't know if you've ever heard of the Hoffman Building here in Alexandria, which is a government building over off Eisenhower Avenue. Well, cut through the chase, Mr. Hoffman gave us a $50,000 grant that I applied for to be a part of the tutoring, reading, etc. The Alexandria Chamber of Commerce gave me $5,000, which I pitched for that. The what was that? The other one was I can't think of it. Other one there. So again, but the emphasis was on upward mobility, in terms of young men instead of going to jail, juvenile system. I worked through that too, but I won't have time to get into that. My journey into the role of community advocate and civil rights arena. Of course, I left off at the Untouchables. The other one, of course, it was a group of young ladies called the Socialites. Eventually, their name became the Ebonettes. Well, they were, I think, about 7 or 8 young ladies, and one which included one of my sisters. What I observed about them, of course, is that they would get together once a week and at each other's house, and they have a little get together. And I said, that's interesting. So I asked my sister, I said, well, what do y'all do? She said, oh, we just get together, pay dues, and may go out to lunch or something. So I said, well, this is a golden opportunity to get them more involved, also get the family involved, and also get their peers involved. So what I decided to do is to ask them, could I come in and address their group and share my idea with them to be more involved. And of course, they allowed me to come in. I shared the directions that I thought they could take. They loved it, of course, and the group became so popular that all the young ladies wanted to be a part of it. So in order to accommodate or get the best, they actually had interviews. And of course, they went from the Socialites to the Ebonettes. But some of the things that they done that's in the community, one was having mom and dad and them put on the banquet, had the parents fully involved, both parents, having high school teenage dances, whereas most times when they having someone would get to fight and there would always be a little disturbance. Well, I would have what's called a semi-formal type dance. The young men who used to be the troublemakers, I would let them know. Now, it's just, if you're coming in, you're going to pay your fee at the door, you have a shirt and tie on, there will be no disturbance. And of course, that went over. The guys, they actually, they just loved it. Was bringing in what we call local type of singing groups, things to help the teenagers out. Went on to get the Holiday Inn and Arlington programs. Really got the family totally integrated into, got the community integrated, and became a very popular social group that had that many tentacles, and we stayed together for about 6 years. And once they finished high school, I disbanded the group because, of course, they were going on to college, etc., and it was never replicated or duplicated again. But to this day, those young ladies, many of them are retired, they stay in touch. Unfortunately, I will be attending one of their funerals next Friday, and a few of them have passed on. But the bond always stayed there with the parent as well as the young ladies, and we were able to accomplish things that had never been accomplished before. And their awareness of civil rights, it was really a great time. My work history. I went to work for the federal government for about 7 years. Again, this, always attempting to get some feedback or get an idea of how the bureaucracy works, how the government works, etc. So I went to work for a commission, which is still, I think it's still in existence, called Advisory Commission on Intergovernmental Relations. And what that primarily was, it was, small town mayors, big town mayors, governors from states, coming together, looking for a bond of making their local communities, their state, much better. And there was a lot of reports that was written. Matter of fact, I'll use an example. Well, the former city manager of Alexandria, I think his name was Coleman, he was a part of that. Former President Ronald Reagan was a part of that commission as governor of California. Former Governor Nelson Rockefeller was a part of that commission. Former Vice President of the United States, Spiro Agnew, was a part of that commission. I cannot actually remember all the different, some of the other members that was part of that board, but my responsibility was at the advisory commission was primarily supplying, making sure that their needs and things that was required, setting up the meetings in advance, traveling in advance to make sure, you know, everything was up. Now they call them schedulers, or going to the General Service Administration, making sure all the supplies, the publications, was a combination of all. But just a great commission and a staff of brilliant thinkers that wrote programs that were consistent with the state, local communities there, and bring those folks together. Also, I served as a consultant many times. I consulted many companies there. One of the companies I consulted was the Northern Virginia Urban League. I served as a consultant there, and I primarily worked with them with programs in life skills and job readiness. At the time, the Urban League had got a contract with the city. Interesting, back in those times, it was not only local, it was across the board. Example, you may have John Doe, who's been in a position as a budget analyst for 25 years. But there was a person who had 28 years who wanted his position, or her position there. They would get knocked out, and they would have to find whatever they could find. They wouldn't lose the salary, but they could end up working outside in what they call it, maintenance, not maintenance, whatever. So folks were being knocked from their jobs, and in Alexandria, of course, was retraining, getting folks back ready for new positions, but more importantly, getting them motivated to begin to take on new responsibilities. So the job ready life skill, that was part of my job. Of course, we did time management, we did financial management, we did several things. I would bring in the experts to come to assist them how to end. Like, matter of fact, that's interesting. Would have back then would tape you an interview. In other words, would show you how to re-interview, like simply like, oh, if any of you got your arms full, that's a no-no. Y'all just saying. But it was retraining folks to get back into the mainstream. That was one of the prime folks on the life skills and job readiness. Also, Urban League too, I did their teen awareness program, and that was working through the juvenile system, whereas kids would get in trouble, they go to juvenile court, instead of them, instead of them, of course, being slapped on the wrist or even sent down to juvenile to the juvenile system, or I say juvenile jail, where the judge, of course, would what we call now community service. So I did the teen program through the juvenile court, creating programs for the young ladies and young men. I even did it. I actually done also the teen pregnancy program, and these are primary women. I did it to the Urban League there. Again, record speaks for itself. It went down to this day. Those women, they always remind me, thanking me for the information that was shared. Of course, with the young men, most of them went on to do pretty good things there. I will give you one quick example of this with the young men. Of course, I've always was big on reading. I was showing them again how they could take that negative energy and turn it to positive energy. I said, well, what do you mean? I said, well, have you ever heard of McDonald's? Oh, yeah, McDonald's, we eat all the time. Well, did you know McDonald's on the stock market? Did you know McDonald's, of course, could be a franchise? You could buy a franchise? No. So let's go to the stock market. Took them up to the stock market, traveled by train. We traveled many places a day. It was a school day. They had to regular school day. We traveled by Amtrak. Folks on the train were so impressed. Got 10 young men. We're going to New York, going to the stock market, learn about the stock market there. Gonna learn about the different investments, et cetera. It was those kind of things that had never been done. Jack Taylor over here, Toyota. Jack Taylor allowed me to come in and bring the young men and walk them through all aspects of being a owner of a dealership. That's what I wanted. From the guy that's, the mechanic, the guy sweeping the floor, what it takes, what is required to be, an owner. And this was something that is still not taught to this day, to my knowledge, is that people assume franchise, etc., that you just walk into it, but you must know every aspect of it. And that's from the point of cleaning the bathroom, and you're working back up. Years ago, Sears and Roebuck, in order for you to be a store manager, that was all segregation, you had to work in every department in the store. In other words, a 2-year training program. You didn't walk in and be assistant manager. You work, you shovel coal. And this was during the segregation time. So yeah, that was a under consultant job readiness. How can I forget? Also, sold life insurance as an agent, a general manager. Which a general manager, of course, you had many agents. You headed up a team of agents there. I started, of course, not bragging, but I was tops. Fireman's Fund. I was the top agent there in the area. United Company's top agent there would fly me out to New Orleans, fly me different places. Up in Pennsylvania. Always was tops in the field of what I've done, but sold life insurance for many years when health insurance was a given, was pending. I mean, health insurance didn't cost hardly anything. Matter of fact, when you went to take the state test, it wasn't any requirement that you take the health part. But I took the health part. All of a sudden, health insurance started, premiums started rising up. Then they made a part, life, health, car, whatever you wanted to do that. So I sold life insurance for a number of years, on commission. Did pretty good with it, and I think actually when I left Virginia, that was the mistake that I made. I'm sorry that I didn't go back to get my license. Is when I left Virginia into Maryland. I didn't get my reciprocals. I said, well, no, pretty much finished with life insurance there. But when I look back on it, of course, that was something that I said, gee, I wish I had kept it. But of course, the industry has changed tremendously. And I guess the last thing, of course, now where am I now? Well, I'm semi-retired. And looking forward to getting back into starting a new business, which we're talking about, So, and what was the other thing I had? Right. I got to back up. How could I possibly forget? I didn't make a note of that. Under work history there, I see what I did. No problem. Senior programs. I got into senior programs. Working for Fellowship Health Resources as a. I started off at, what did I start off as? I forget my job type. Anyway, primarily what I've done, I ran group homes and working with men and women who were being reintegrated back into the community from state hospitals. Again, this was a federal funded program, which was, under that time, was called the DAD program. The idea was, of course, 3 to 5 years, they should maybe be reintegrated back into the community there. My responsibility was to get them, again, life skill, job readiness, their workers there, sharing with them how to be reintegrated. But of course, one of the biggest problems was that most communities did not want group homes in their community. So one of the things, of course, I had to do was meet with the neighborhood community, share the program about what we're doing, and then having some of the team members come to meet them. But great program, worked in crisis also through the state hospital, working with some of the most difficult men and women that came, that were coming out. And as a matter of fact, did a fantastic job there. I cannot call names. Well, I won't call names, but I will. One situation that I had was a person who was so mentally ill that anything they touched, they thought it was contaminated. If they never wore, they thought everything was contaminated. Matter of fact, if you dropped a $1,000 bill on the floor, they wouldn't touch it. However, I got them involved in things no one has ever done before. That's working also with a team of psychiatrists, clinicians, etc. So I was a part of that team. But I proved my point. I got this person where it would take this person 6 to 8 hours to take a shower. They would have to roll a paper towel and say that's where the cleansing thing was at. But I got them to do what? Got them involved. To cut through the chase now, they live by themselves. They're doing great. They still have those kinds of things there. Had another person, 7 years, had never taken a shower. was a psychiatrist, had their own place, smelled like a rock wobbler. No one could do it. I said, give me 9 months. I will have him showering and doing this kind of. Well, that person passed on, but it happened. I had the doctor, the psychiatrist thing. They were just amazed. So that was my thing into into that, and then from there, of course, I went on to Hermitage there to develop programs, activities, etc. Work with people, and so both of them have been very rewarding. Matter of fact, that's really where I'm at now, is getting back into that particular community. However, it does not limit to that community, because there's also this teenage younger community that need to be regenerated. And as the pandemic's not over, of course. We know the politics of everything is that they decide they're going to smooth over. Well, it's up to each individual what they. This mass has created so many about what they may or may not do. It's just amazing, and of people. It's just people are just so mean-spirited. We live in a wicked world. Not just people. I'm not exonerating myself. I'm not saying perhaps I mean too, but that's the reality of it. But it's learning how to navigate through those kinds of things, recognize this is how it is, and this is not going to change. So am I angry, mad? No. So that's the kind of thing. Is creating these new activities and programs, because we certainly can continue to do some things that we always done, but we have to have a nugget, a gold nugget, to assist people mentally to get back, not physically, to mentally get back. So okay, I got this nugget, and this is really going to help me to go back and work on my laptop. I haven't worked on my laptop for a year. So it is those kinds of programs, and this is this kind of program that we are doing today, hopefully will assist people in beginning to be motivated and encouraged. It's not how you start, it's how you finish. Thank you.